All right, folks, welcome back to the program. Hey, joining us in studio, we got State Representative Jimmy Gazaway. Jimmy, welcome back to the program, sir.
Good morning, Paul. Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about Issue 1. That's why I wanted to have you on. You have been going all over the state or different venues and that sort of thing, talking about Issue 1 and why it's not a good policy, why it's not a good amendment that needs to be voted for. And so tell us why Issue 1 is bad in your opinion, Jimmy Gazaway.
Well, it's hard to narrow it down. I mean, there's so many reasons why it's bad. But you're right, I have been speaking all over the state about it. And I think primarily, it's just bad for everyday Arkansans. It does several things, first of which is, it limits people's ability to hire the lawyer of their choosing because it limits the amount of money that an attorney can make off a case on attorney contingency fees. And, the point there being, they'll claim that it's to rein in greedy lawyers. Mm-hmm. But the fact is that if you can't get a lawyer to take your case because a lawyer can't make any money with that case, then your case never gets brought. And if your case is never brought, then those who may have done you wrong are never held accountable, which is exactly what they want. So they'll claim it's to rein in greedy trial lawyers. It's not about that. It's about preventing you from being able to get a lawyer, because if they can prevent you from being able to get a lawyer, then you never bring a claim and they're never held accountable, which is exactly what they want. The second thing that Issue 1 does, and that I think, to me, it's just the most disgraceful thing about it, are the damage caps. Issue 1 will cap non-economic damages at $500,000. And so, then the question is, well, what are non-economic damages? And a lot of people don't understand that because the proponents of Issue 1, one of the things you'll hear them say so often is, well, economic damages are unlimited. You can get all the economic damages in the world. They're completely unlimited. Well, that's true. But what if you're a person who doesn't have any economic damages? What if you don't have a job? What if you're someone who's confined to a nursing home? Okay? They don't work. There's no hope that they'll ever work. There's not going to ever be any economic damage with somebody like that. Mm-hmm. And so if a person who has no economic damage like that is abused or killed, you're talking about $500,000 maximum compensation for them. And so what are non-economic damages? They're the damages that we define in the law as those for pain and suffering, for scarring and permanent disfigurement, for loss of a bodily member or function. So, for example, you lose an arm, you lose 2 arms, you lose all your limbs, you're paralyzed.
Yeah, I saw an article against Issue 1. It was talking about somebody losing their sight. That would be covered as under this as well.
Absolutely. Right? Loss of a bodily function, your ability to see, and then loss of life. And so that's why you hear it so often referred to as the price of life amendment. And you see, those who are opposed, like me, say that it puts a price tag on life. Because if you have no economic damage, and there are a lot of people in our society who don't, those confined to nursing homes, for example,
yep.
Then the maximum amount of money that you'll be able to be awarded, because your only damages are going to be non-economic. And so the maximum amount would be $500,000. And what a miscarriage of justice for people who are abused or die because of the neglect of someone else, to say that the maximum amount of recovery that they can receive because the survivors for their loved one's death is $500,000. That is morally wrong. And that's why you see people like Jerry Cox at the Family Council and Rose Mims, not in her capacity with Arkansas Right to Life, but in her personal capacity. That's why you see those folks come out against this, because morally that is wrong.
Yeah, I completely agree with what you're saying. I'm glad that you're coming on and you're making these points. You also have an incentive factor to look at here when it comes to, does a business, nursing home, trucking company, insurance company, whatever, do they have an incentive once they have done something wrong that's resulted in a death or disfigurement or whatever? Do they have an incentive to make sure it doesn't happen again?
think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, folks, welcome. Good morning to everyone out there listening to the sound of my voice. This is the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine, and we want you to be a part of that liberty machine. And you listening right now means that you're part of it, even if you're, I don't know, just listening to see what the other side that you disagree with has to say. But hey, you're listening. The phone number, again, 870-275-9799. You can call or text that. Sound off over at facebook.com/Conduit News, and head on over to the YouTube page at Conduit News, and you want to subscribe to that, please, and also click the little bell to receive notifications when we, put up other videos and things like that. A very popular video that has, kind of made the rounds has been this one exposing the different positions of the Trump administration on China and on the trade war with China. Really, in a lot of ways, some military, you can't say conflicts yet, but you certainly can say, saber-rattling, military saber-rattling, economic saber-rattling. That's been going on. Our ships having to divert at the last second to not collide with their ships and that sort of thing. This video, basically showing Vice President Mike Pence and his speech and versus what Arkansas does, which is host, communist Chinese secretaries from the Shandong province in an effort to give our taxpayer dollars to them through incentives so that they'll come here and hopefully create jobs, but at some point, take our resources, make communist Chinese profitable. Anyway, those deals are on hold right now. And this video is really, really good, very educational. It's going to let the average person at least know there's a difference. There seems to be a difference. And there are some new developments on that, and I'll talk about that a little later in the program today. The big story here is we've got, days before an election, couple weeks before an election. Early voting starts today here in Arkansas. Early voting has started in other places across the country, I think, last week. And surprisingly, on Friday I told you that I was right on Monday when I predicted a week ago today that this Khashoggi, Saudi Arabia story was, is being attempted to lay it at the feet of the president. It's all his fault. Well, you certainly can see a shift because I don't think that worked either. Mohammed bin Salman is likely to stay. People are skeptical, but people are saying, we at least know that Mohammed bin Salman doesn't believe in radical political Islam. We don't know necessarily what the other princes would do if they got into power. So we kind of know what we got with MBS is what he's referred to as, the acronym MBS. So that's kind of disintegrated. I mean, they're still going to keep talking about it. But they have shifted to this huge story about the growing caravan of migrants, how they were supposed to be kept in Guatemala. But, in the Mexican government, they kept them there for a while. But, hey, it's Mexico, right? I mean, those Mexican Border Patrol agents were probably just waiting for George Soros to write them a check. So, okay, you guys can come on in. The official story, though, is that they went ahead and crossed into Mexico from Guatemala on rafts. The caravan is now swelled to, did I see the number 7,000? 7,000 people? Who's paying for this? Caravan swells to 7,000. Who's paying for this? Joe from the other room, you can't hear him, but Joe from the other room said it's George Soros. George Soros is the one paying for this. If that's true, if George Soros is paying for this, now the mainstream media tells you that these people are very, very poor and that they're basically not being paid and everything else. But there's got to be somebody's making money off of organizing something like this. A caravan swells to 7,000. If it is true that it's George Soros, so whoever it is, can the United States government not take some action against that person? I'm serious. You at this point, you're more than a nuisance at this point, right? I don't know what that action would be. I'm just saying, is there not something that we could do as a country to say, hey, I don't care if you are a billionaire or whatever George Soros is. Donald Trump's a billionaire. It's just strange. The caravan has swelled to 7,000. They're pushing deep into Mexico. This is what Donald Trump said, but this was a couple days ago. But pull up this YouTube video, and President Trump had this to say when he was asked about the caravan. Take a listen to this statement.
Headed toward the U.S. Have you thought about specific actions?
So we have the worst laws in the history of the world because we don't have a big enough majority. We have great people standing behind me. We could write up the laws in a half an hour. You'd have the greatest laws that would stop all the problems. Problem is we need support from Democrats because we have small majorities, especially in the Senate. Yeah. Because in the Senate, we need 9 votes. We're not going to get 9 votes. They're not going to vote. They always vote in a block. They'll do anything to hurt the Republican Party, even if... So
he gets this caravan question, and he says, well, first of all, we could fix this problem if the Democrats weren't obstructionists, which is fantastic. I mean, that's a great response. He's basically saying Republicans have got to get out and vote. We've got to, and he's essentially going to use what the media is trying to use against him to motivate the left, right? Separating parents from their children and separating families, that's what they're going to come back with. They're going to come back with the contrived emotional argument about the separation of children from parents from the media that loves abortion and the left that loves abortion and everything else. Yeah, I'm going to make that point every single time. It's not a low blow. It is a legitimate point to make because these people are hypocrites, and the media, they're on their high horse, they're on this pedestal, and it's all a sham because the moral outrage today is you're massive hypocrites tomorrow. It's just this forced altruism that is it's phony. It's absolutely phony. But anyway, so President Trump says, "Hey, listen, this is the real issue here. We gotta win." And the American people got to give us more votes so we can stop some of this. Now, he went on to say in this statement but you'll see right now Mexico is stopping them. Well, this was a couple of days ago, which has caused President Trump at his rallies to now say, and this is the news story, is that President Trump is now saying he's going to send the military to the southern border, and that these people will not get in. That they won't get asylum. They will not get into the country. And I have to say, it's about time. It's about time. And what I would hope that the Trump administration would do is to start, and maybe Donald Trump will tweet this, I don't know, and maybe he already has. I haven't looked today. But is to maybe even say, hey, listen, we're going to start putting out information here that details exactly who's coordinating this, who's funding it, and we're not going to allow this, manufactured chaos. This is manufactured chaos. Yes, these people are in worse countries than the United States of America. But we get to decide who comes here and who doesn't, and we have a border, and it means something. It means something. And who knows who else is behind this, by the way, because there are interests on the right. I do have to point this out. There are interests on the right that do want open borders, for cheap labor and everything else. That's a thing as well. Going over to Breitbart, let's look at this. Steve King, the Republican from Iowa. This from John Binder. Representative Steve King says men from the most violent countries in the world are invading the United States through illegal and legal immigration, In an interview with an Australian media outlet, King discussed the death of 20-year-old college student Molly Tibbetts, whose body was found in September in a cornfield in her rural hometown of Brooklyn, Iowa, after she was last seen jogging on July 18th. And of course, we have Christian Bahina Rivera, an illegal alien from Mexico, was charged with first-degree murder in the Tibbetts killing. If Molly Tibbetts had carried a 15-ounce gun, it would have been more useful to her than her cell phone. Wow. Anyway, so this is a good point. Generally, he's raising the point that, yeah, with the drug cartels and the southern border in some places, it's one of the most violent places on the planet. They find vans full of torsos, just torsos, no arms, no legs, no heads. Don't know where those are, but they're somewhere. They're not on the torso. They're not on the body. It's a very violent place down there. It's an embarrassment that we're the greatest country in the world. We do have all this military might, but our southern border is essentially chaos, you know? I mean, there are more dangerous places in the southern border, right? Like, I don't know, inside of the Saudi Arabian embassy in Turkey. Yeah, it's pretty. But there are more dangerous places, the Middle East being one of them. But it's pretty violent, you know, in these countries south of the United States, and we got to stop this. We got to stop this from going on. So I'm glad. Okay, I'm glad that President Trump is saying, listen, yeah, I'll send troops to the border, and he even said in the audio clip that I heard, he said, we're not talking about reserves. I'm talking about the United States military. Then, of course, CBS runs a headline, the president doesn't have the authority to do that. Okay, all right. That's the next narrative. If the president, this will be the next narrative, if the president, for national security purposes, attempts to stop an invasion, okay, then he doesn't. He's the commander-in-chief and doesn't have the authority to send troops to the border. Well, we'll see. We'll see. And I know there's probably constitutional arguments because the executive branch has grown in power. You know, there's no question about that. But still, we'll see. All of a sudden, CBS and the rest of the mainstream media, they're going to find something else to say. Listen, they're going to fall into their own nets because they've continued to fall into their own nets. It's happening over and over and over. I've never seen anything like this. And yeah, you know, I'm 34 years old, but I'm 34. I've never seen anything like this. Just in terms of, I've been following this, you know, the media, doing this job for 9 years now, and it's official, 9 years, and I haven't actually ever seen something happen to where you have all of these traps and all of these lies or nets set for the president or for any political official, and it just seems it ends up working out worse for CNN. It ends up working out worse for the Democrats every single time. It's amazing. Now, that could all be thrown out the window, and I could be completely, you know, I could look like a fool, which I'm not afraid to, you know, if the Republicans get swept or they lose control of the House or whatever. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that would definitely be a win for the media. That would be a win for those who want you to believe that Donald Trump is a KKK, KGB, you know, racist, and a Nazi. He's also a Nazi. Oh, and he's also unduly influenced by the government of Saudi Arabia. Maybe he's a Saudi Arabian agent now. Yeah, it'd be a win for them if they took over the House. I don't think they're going to. I think people are motivated. I think we've got 2 Supreme Court justices. I think we want to have more Supreme Court justices appointed by President Donald Trump and confirmed by a Republican Senate. That's what I think's going on right now. Lindsey Graham quoted as saying, "Don't give the Democrats power. Nancy Pelosi will welcome the caravans here." Now, that's exactly right. If the Democrats take control of the House, they will do nothing to secure the southern border. If you thought 2016 was about President Donald Trump's main mantra, build the wall, that wall is not going to get built or have a very difficult time being built if the Democrats take over the House. Say what you want to. We are a compassionate country. Look at the people that we that are here, right? But we can't take care of everybody. We can't take care of everybody that's in our country now. So at some point, you know, you would even think that maybe people who are more prone to wanting a welfare state, right, or wanting programs for Americans, you got to wonder something here, right? These people come in. Eventually, it comes down to a dollars and cents figure, and we don't have an infinite amount of resources. That's the problem. You have a finite amount of resources. But if you keep bringing these people in, it's going to collapse the system. So even people who are maybe Democrats who believe in maybe a welfare program but it needs to be done right or whatever, we can get into how it's always inefficient, but whatever, we could put that aside. Listen, you need to think about all this stuff coming in, the crime, everything else, the people who have these phony asylum claims. They're going to come in and they're going to, basically take American taxpayer money that's meant for those who truly can't help themselves, and they're going to find a way to get on, because they've got welfare pamphlets at Mexican embassies here in the United States. This is not some far-fetched idea. It's already happening. Anyway, we're going to take a break. The number is 870-275-9799, and I hope that you've had a great weekend, and I hope that you're having a great morning. And this is Conduit News Radio. Back in just a moment. And to somebody else. And if you cap it at $500,000, the nursing homes are just going to have it's going to be an itemized thing. How many times we get sued if they can find a lawyer?
That's right.
How many times do they get sued? All right, well, now it's just on an Excel spreadsheet. It's a cost of doing business. Every couple of years, we're going to pay $500,000 or less to somebody, somewhere, for killing somebody or doing something. And once that gets just kind of factored in, you don't really have an incentive to do right. Talk about greedy trial lawyers. Are you kidding me? This is about greedy big business. This is about greedy nursing homes. And I'd like to ask you, Jimmy, we're talking with State Representative Jimmy Gazaway. We've got a judge who's in jail for taking a bribe from nursing homes, or a nursing home owner, allegedly. Only in Arkansas can you have a bribee, but we still don't have any charges against the briber. But this judge pled guilty for taking $10,000 to lower a nursing home judgment that was against a nursing home.
Bob Maloney here with a developing story from ASA News, The Parrot. China is coming to Arkansas. We go live to the press conference where the Communist Chinese executive is addressing Arkansans for the first time. Let's listen into the translator.
On behalf of the government of the People's Republic of China, we invite you to come and visit the newest named city in Arkansas, China, Delphia. We are very pleased to own an American city. Our communist government is proud to do business with the mediocre state of Arkansas. We are happy to take your money and your trees and send the profits back home. The Communist government of China was pleased to learn the taxpayers of Arkansas are excited to contribute their money with the hope, if you build it, one day jobs will come. We are excited to take your fields of capitalism and turn them into fields of communism, where every Arkansan has nightly dreams of Mao. China is looking forward to our investment of $1 billion in what is now called Arkansas. We see this as an investment in our future, and that future will be called New Beijing. Chinese investment will make Arkansas a great place for jobs, as the People's Republic of China will succeed where the Soviets failed. As we build our roots deep in Arkansas, we are thrilled with the potential new ideas and advancement we will share with our people back home. Soon we will have the world's largest runway in the South China Sea, and we thank Arkansas for contributing to our noble cause. In closing, once we make China great again, all of you will see the glory of the revolution of Mao. And Arkansas, whatever you do, please never call the FBI.
Paul Harrell, Parrot.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is building a liberty machine. Find out more at conduitnews.com.
Are you ready for this, Joe? You don't think you've seen this headline, but we need to talk about it. If you turn the pods off. All right, so 14 days. 14 days until the general election, where we decide control of the House. 14 days. And Governor Asa Hutchinson is publicly telling President Donald Trump to end the trade war with China. I'm sure he's getting phone calls, or will be getting phone calls from MSNBC literally any second. George Jared over at talkbusiness.net reporting that Governor Hutchinson thinks the trade war with China should end, and he sent a message to President Donald Trump through Vice President Mike Pence recently. The tariffs imposed by China in retaliation for the tariffs Trump placed on Chinese steel and aluminum are having a catastrophic impact on farmers, especially soybean farmers. Is that true? Is it catastrophic? I'm curious. I mean, there's a relief program coming for this very thing. And there's also some farmers that I've talked to that, yeah, they understand what's going on, but they think long-term this is good to have a little pain now so that the United States of America can reclaim a little sovereignty when it comes to the global market, because we're being taken advantage of. We're being taken advantage of. We've got $600 billion a year in intellectual property, and we're talking about a soybean market that's what is it? You know, is it $80 billion? And $40 billion of it is the export side. So you got $40 billion in export versus $600 billion a year in intellectual property. That's that you never hear those two numbers reported next to each other, by the way. And of course, we know those numbers because we listen to the great Lou Dobbs. Yeah, that's not very balanced. I'm just curious if there are farmers out there. If you disagree, I'd like to hear from you. But if you agree too, I mean. Like, I would just like to know, is that true? Is it a catastrophic thing? Asa Hutchinson quoted 14 days before the general election. Asa Hutchinson quoted as saying that Trump, quote, needs to declare victory and move on. And he said this on Friday at the Northeast Arkansas Political Animals meeting in Jonesboro. Now, the rest of this article, I think, is pretty much doesn't reference anything else. But can we talk a little bit about how there may be some other motivations here? I mean, is Governor Asa Hutchinson actually concerned about the farmers, or is he more concerned about the fact that his economic development strategy, which has to do with selling Arkansas real estate to the communist Chinese so that they'll move here, is a big part of his concern? I mean, we already have other stories that the Arkansas Economic Development Commission, they are meeting, or they are calling and in contact daily with the Chinese companies about these deals that are on hold because of the China trade war. First of all, what does that even mean? He needs to declare victory and move on. But what if there's not an actual victory? Is there a victory? Obviously, the president hasn't gotten what he wants out of China. And the Chinese need our market very, very much. Some people say it's only a matter of time. I don't know. I just find it odd. I find it very, very, very odd. You can go back to his 2016 comment on MSNBC where the governor said, you got to have somebody that knows how the world works. He was saying this in a negative connotation towards Trump, suggesting that Donald Trump doesn't know how the world works. Listen, it just is what it is. I mean, we're 14 days from an election, and it's a very important one. It's very frustrating. We got to take a break. Back in a minute. Jake files in the discovery. We know when the bill was filed, I think by it was Eddie Joe Williams at the time, filed this situation's predecessor, this bill's predecessor. He got $80,000 from a nursing home owner right after it was filed. And it's like only in Arkansas do with all of that information, this thing still gets on the ballot under, a lot of, push from, the party that's in charge. And so is that just, they want to talk about special interest. Well, this is special interest. The reason we are voting on this is because of special interest.
Well, you're exactly right. I mean, I've heard some people refer to it as, I refer to it as the Price of Life Amendment. I've heard some people refer to it as the Special Interest Protection Act because, the folks who are behind it, I mean, let's just be honest about it. It's the special interest. It's the nursing homes who, like you said, there's a former circuit judge who's in federal prison today because he pled guilty to accepting a bribe from a nursing home owner in the form of apparently a really large campaign contribution. There are the other allegations that you mentioned, and I think that's under investigation. We'll see what happens with that.
Yeah.
I don't want to accuse anybody of anything. You never really know. So I'm not going to go there. But the circuit judge pled guilty.
Yeah.
To accepting a bribe, and so who's behind this? The nursing homes, the trucking association, the medical society, the healthcare association. It's all the normal players. And like you said, one of the things I hear so often about this is, well, I'm a conservative, I'm a Republican, and conservatives and Republicans believe in tort reform. So shouldn't I be for this? I mean, isn't this a conservative thing? And one of my responses to that is, this is not about Republican versus Democrat. This is not about conservative versus liberal. The fact is, this is the history. You can go look it up. There's been tort reform offered in Arkansas. You can go back to 2001, 2003, back in previous legislative sessions when the legislature was controlled by Democrats. I mean, go back and look at those bills and look who the sponsors on them were.
Yeah.
They were Democrats. The vast majority of the legislature in 2003 was controlled by Democrats. Here's the point. The legislative environment is the swamp, okay? And the swamp is still there. It's always been there. It's still there. It's just the alligators have changed from blue to red.
Mm-hmm.
And the players just, it's the same players in a lot of instances. They've just swapped a blue jacket for a red jacket. It's not about Republican versus Democrat. It's about these special interests trying to get their way.
Bringing you your daily dose of truth. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, so sound off. I want to hear from you on this. Please give me a text message, 870-275-9799. Or you can sound off over at Facebook, facebook.com/Conduit News. So we're 14 days from an election, and at the Northeast Arkansas Political Animals Club on Friday, Governor Asa Hutchinson tells Donald Trump to end the trade war with China. I mean, that's the headline here. Talk Business and Politics headline. Governor Hutchinson tells Trump to end trade war with China. Now, if this gets to the mainstream media, I'm just telling you right now, MSNBC will be calling Asa asking for an interview to elaborate. Because the MSNBC loves it when Republicans criticize President Trump. They love this angle, and I don't understand it. I just don't understand it. Asa quoted as saying he needs to declare victory and move on. Somebody on Facebook writing if Governor Asa Hutchinson wants to make those type of decisions, and he needs to win the White House. Whoa! Don't give anybody anywhere any ideas, please. So, I just think this is pretty huge news. I understand why Talk Business and Politics here went with this headline because it's, What's the headline I would have gone with? It's reporting a pretty big deal of what he said because it's yet again another difference between Republicans and how they're somehow divided over President Trump. At this point, I don't see how. But there are still some holdouts. Apparently, Asa is one of them. I wasn't a fan of Donald Trump. I said some things about Donald Trump back during the 2016 primaries because they were my opinions at the time, right? And I was wrong. I mean, he's been a great president so far. He's actually, done what he said he was going to do. Now, not all of it because, it's obstructionist, but I mean, he wasn't just, I think it's clear now that he wasn't just manipulating. He wasn't manipulating people just to get power and then, go do whatever you want, like most politicians do. That is abundantly clear. So, anyway, I just don't understand. Like, listen, President Trump is upsetting the status quo. He is doing things that nobody else has done in a long time in this country. He is willing to say, just because we've always done it this way for the last 50 years doesn't mean we have to. He's willing to destroy institutions. Instead of, in the past, people would say, no, you gotta respect this institution, whether it's like the United Nations or whether it's, the new institutions like the Iran deal or the Paris Climate Accords. You got to respect that. It's the institution of the presidency. Most presidents, they honor the deals that other presidents were in before them, and you don't want to. And Donald Trump said, what are you talking about? I won the presidency. I'm going to govern my way, because he's treating it just like anybody would do. If you have one CEO and the CEO goes out, you have a new CEO. That CEO comes in and he puts in his agenda, his vision, and that's exactly what President Trump is attempting to do here. And one of the things he's done is he is instituting policies that are, according to, people on the right, are not free trade policies, really. Right now we have this policy of what's called free trade, and we see what's happened, right? We have the policy of free trade, but everybody else doesn't. They say, nah, you guys, free trade, but we're gonna do tariffs. We're gonna do the things we want to do. We're going to manipulate our currency, and we're going to do, we're in the World Trade Organization. We're China, and yet we're a developing country under the World Trade Organization, but somehow we can afford to give billions of dollars, or we can afford to invest $1 billion in a state like Arkansas. Something's not right there. So anyway, 14 days from an election, and Arkansans are waking up this morning and reading a headline that Governor Hutchinson is telling Trump to end the trade war with China. Now, he cites soybean farmers. He says it's because of the catastrophic tariffs imposed by China are hurting our farmers. And I think this is really about the fact that Asa wants these deals in China-Delphia to go through. That's what I think it is. But I really wish we had more quotes here. I wish we had from Talk Business and Politics, I really wish we had more like an extensive quote on what was said, because I really would love to know more about what Asa meant when he said he needs to declare victory and move on. China hasn't stopped. You know what I'm saying? They haven't made an agreement yet, so why would we stop? I mean, now they've caved a little bit. Man, we're done with negotiations, and guess what? The Chinese say, hey, we want to negotiate again. We're going to send a delegation over, and that hasn't produced anything as of yet, so the tariffs go on. Worked out well with the Canada-Mexico deal, right? Apparently, that's the equivalent, according to economic experts. The United States won the Super Bowl with that deal. It's going to be a deal with the EU. I mean, this is what's happening. He's using the threat of tariffs to accomplish things. And China's the holdout. No surprise there. But anyway, it's just unbelievable to me. So, yeah, send me a text message, 870-275-9799. 870-275-9799. Let's see here, man. Some really funny stuff people are saying here on the Facebook page. Gene writes, Asa Hutchinson fighting President Trump. That's not news. Yeah, well, maybe not. But I think 14 days before an election that we're essentially, I mean, President Trump at his rallies, he has said that he's not on the ballot, but he is. He said, I'm not on the ballot, but I am on the ballot. Because, this is essentially a vote in a way. He's saying that it's going to at least be played that way. I mean, if the Democrats take the House, it'll be, it's a huge referendum. Huge referendum on President Trump. And, yeah, that would probably be the political reality when you have a media that's done what they've done. Of course, if the Republicans keep the House, it won't be viewed as a mandate. The media will still resist. We must resist. We must resist. Resist the tyrant, the KGB, KKK, Nazi, racist, Saudi Arabian agent that's in the White House. We must resist him. Again, the phone number 870-275-9799. We're going to be talking at 7:33, coming up in about an hour, a little less than an hour, with Maria Espinoza. She's back on the show. Maria is the national director of an organization called the Remembrance Project. This is a project designed to remember those who have been killed by illegal immigrants in this country. And the main point is very simple. These deaths were preventable. If we had an immigration policy that made sense, these deaths would be preventable. And then maybe the number one thing that you could prevent if you could figure out a way to control who comes here. And so what we're going to talk about is the 7,000 people now, if you're just joining us, just waking up, just having your first sip of coffee, the 7,000 people who are part of a caravan who are now in Mexico. They did get out of Guatemala, and they're heading for here. They're heading for the United States. President Trump says he will deploy the military if necessary and will just not let them in. You know what, I'm curious? I'm really curious about this. I know we're trying to build a wall. I would love to know, how long would it take the U.S. military to secure the border? Not build the wall. That's got to happen. I just mean, and I'm talking about, kick the tires, light the fires, I'm talking the full might of the United States military. How long would they, and how many troops would it take too? But how long would it actually take? I don't think it would take very long. I mean, I think with an order from the President of the United States, they could, I'm talking, have that thing just shut down the border. Over at Breitbart News, they have a story here. Immigration expert Jessica Vaughn lists the 4 ways President Donald Trump can solve the migrant caravan crises. Jessica Vaughn, the director of policy studies at the Center for Immigration Studies, offered 4 recommendations. Number 1, close the border. Vaughn said the executive branch needs to do something in the short term, including consideration of shutting down crossings through the U.S.-Mexico border. Wow, can you imagine? Media would have an absolute stroke. If it gets to the point where caravan migrants get to the U.S. border in a group like that, which they may not, they could be broken up. Some of them are going to get to the U.S. border for sure, because there's just no way Mexico is going to find all those people who busted through the fence. And they may not come as a caravan. They'll just try to cross illegally. Vaughn recalled how the U.S. essentially shut down the southern border in 1985 after Mexican drug cartel criminals murdered Enrique Kiki Carrera, a Drug Enforcement Administration agent. Okay, stop. You mean we've done this before? In 85, we've done this before. That'll be I predict this is going to boil over, come to a head. I think Trump is going to send the military to the border. I think he'll do it. Vaughn remarked, but if they come as a group, we could shut down a border crossing or shut down a part of the border. It's been done before in order to shut down drug trafficking and make a statement. When a DEA agent was killed in Mexico, we shut down the border to make a statement. This is, again, back in 1985. It could be done. That might be what it comes down to, and I don't think Mexico wants to see that. Number two, this immigration expert says, refuse bogus asylum claims. Mansour noted economic reasons for caravanning migrants seeking entry to the United States. The media is not even trying to pretend that these people are fleeing for anything other than economic reasons. News media outlets such as the New York Times and Washington Post have described caravan migrants' motivations for seeking entry to the U.S. as economic. Vaughn described the openly stated economic motivations for the caravanning migrants as making it harder to justify allowing these people to set foot in the United States. Vaughn recalled how left-wing lawyers had previously coached foreigners, providing them specific scripts to recite before border security and immigration officials on how best to enter America via existing refugee and asylum laws and policies. And they know how to manipulate those laws. They say one phrase and boom, they're in, they get a court date. Left-wing lawyers have also previously provided pro bono legal services to asylum claimants. Really? Pro bono? Wonder who's paying them. You know they're not doing that for free. Can anyone say George Soros? Number three, refuse entry to migrants and send them home. That's another thing that could happen here. She says, I think the caravan itself is going to be broken up, but many of the people in it are going to make their way up to the border and try to get across, and many of them are going to succeed. If they come in a big group like that, they could well shut down the border, but I have a feeling that we're going to see it break up and people end up getting through individually anyway, unless the president takes more bold steps to say, look, I'm stopping this. These people are not getting through. We're not accepting their asylum claims because they're bogus. Trump must actually send them back. That is what it's going to take to avoid having more of these caravans. These are not credible fear claims that are credible. She says they don't meet the standard of law, and therefore they're going home, and we're not even going to allow them. Okay, now, so let's say that happens. We're 14 days before an election. So let's say they get there in what? I don't know. What are they going to get there? I don't know. 2 days, 3 days, 5 days. They're eventually going to get there. And they're going to get there before November 6th. And so the media will have cameras down there. They will be filming, especially if the president does actually send the military to secure the border. Now, can you imagine the optics there? Can you imagine the potential provocations that could happen between people and the military? This is a manufactured crisis, and we can literally see it coming for miles, for hundreds and hundreds of miles. We can see this thing coming. It is manufactured. It is a manufactured crisis, and it is designed to affect the outcome of an election. Where have you heard that phrase before? Yeah, from the liars on the left and the fake news that have been telling you for the last 2 years that the president of the United States is illegitimate because he's a KGB agent, and they're meddling in our elections to directly affect the outcome of the American election, blah, 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 blah. This caravan is what is there to deliberately affect. Look, we're not idiots. We can see clearly what this is. And I'm telling you, I don't think the president has any choice but to send the military there at this point. It's going to just keep happening. Every time the left and the media and the people don't get what they want, we'll have George Soros or whoever's funding this pour some money in there. Let's round up some more people and let's create some sort of national publicity crisis, and let's lay it at the feet of the president. Man, I'm telling you, this to me is I think any other time in history it would be called up for what it is. People would be asking what this is all about. but the media wants you to believe it's legitimate, that all these people were so desperate that they organized themselves, and they just, here we go, we're going to go to America. But because they are desperate, it's like a caged animal or an animal in a trap. I mean, I think this is just the desperation. This is the death throes. This is right before. If they don't take the House, I'm telling you right now, this is manufactured, and it means that they don't think they're taking the House right now. That's my feeling. It's just a gut feeling. They don't believe it. The media is saying, right, all the polling, the Republicans are down in these key districts in California. Oh, the Republicans are going to lose in Indiana. Oh, it's going to have. Well, what about what is this all about? What is this caravan? I don't think they think. They think they are going to come up short, and that the Republicans keep the House and the Republicans keep the Senate. And if that happens, they've got nothing else. Not to mention, there are whispers, don't know if it's true, but whispers that Robert Mueller's Russia investigation, he's about ready to submit his final report. Now, he's not going to do this before the election. I mean, at least he's not supposed to be allowed to do that. But, and if he did, boy, wouldn't that would be totally ironic, because he would be reporting on the potential meddling and effect of U.S. elections by Russia and Donald Trump, and then he would be affecting the election anyway. But they're saying that this according to Politico, that this report is not going to be anything. It's going to basically reveal that we've been lied to for the last 18 months by the media and everybody. You know, it's not. There's no smoking gun. We would have known it by now, right? Don't you understand this? They're so desperate that we would have known if Donald Trump was a KGB agent or whatever the worst case scenario is, we would have known by now. The deep state has plenty of press contacts. They leak all the time. Now, they've leaked a lot of lies, but if it was something substantial, we would have known it by now. So the caravan, as you heard it here first, it's a manufactured controversy, but I think it's a tell. I think it should motivate us more to get out and vote. And I think that's what President Donald Trump would do. I mean, if he does send the military to the border and saying, this is ridiculous, okay? This is America. This is not the country of free lunches for the rest of the world. In the meantime, 14 days until the general election, we've got to get out and vote. We got to get out and vote for Republicans, okay? That's what you hear, right? To keep why? Why do the people in Central Arkansas need to vote for French Hill so that he goes up there and doesn't vote to impeach the president? That's why. That's the number one reason why. Right? The number one reason why you need to vote for French Hill and Rick Crawford and the rest of them is because, listen, it's very simple. A Democrat will go up there and is going to vote to impeach President Donald Trump on day one and probably vote for Nancy Pelosi. So we know this. And if you want to keep Trump and you want to keep the MAGA agenda going, whether you agree with most of it, but you like generally the direction the country's going, then you're going to want to do that. 14 days before an election, and I'm reading headlines that Governor Asa Hutchinson, also a Republican, is telling Trump to end the trade war with China. I can't, and here's the thing. We're the one, I'm criticized all the time, but you don't support Republicans at all costs. You should support all Republicans all the time, and ignore our shortcomings when we are corrupt, or when we vote to grow government, or we vote to increase taxes and all this stuff. Ignore that. It's re-election time. You need to support me and talk about how great I am. Okay, well, I mean, it just seems to me that maybe you should practice what you preach. I don't know. We got to take a break. Back in a moment.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world.
These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Yeah, and they want to insulate themselves from having to, to pay out, this money. Let's talk about the other thing this does. It lets the legislature set rules of evidence for the judicial branch. It's a clear violation of the separation of powers, in my opinion. So talk a little bit about that. I don't trust the swamp to set these rules any more than I trust the judiciary to set them. I'd rather it be where it's supposed to be, in the courts.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's the other thing about it. So there are 3 parts primarily, and I kind of touched on the attorney part. If you limit attorneys' fees where they can't make any money on a case, then you'll have people who may have legitimate claims who won't be able to get a lawyer, who won't be able to bring that claim, and no one's ever held accountable. The second part, the damage caps, of course, which I talked briefly about. One thing that I didn't mention in there, and you talked about being able to hold those responsible.
Determined to drain the swamp in Little Rock, it's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, folks, welcome back. 870-275-9799. Yeah, so ICE. Democrats want to get rid of ICE. This is not, this was all as a response to President Trump being tough on illegal immigration, being tough on what's going on at the border, advocating for border security. That's what this was all about. And so then they come out and they say, well, ICE, you got to eliminate ICE. They're terrorists, ICE. And now we got the caravan situation. Elizabeth Warren is saying that ICE is not making us safer. Folks, I want you to realize, Elizabeth Warren, Native American, Elizabeth Warren, look at those cheekbones. Those are some good-looking high cheekbones right there. Last week we had headlines that ICE seized enough fentanyl that could have killed 5 million Americans. John Binder, again, Elizabeth Warren says the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency is not making us safer just weeks after ICE conducted a life-saving drug seizure. Unbelievable. Yeah. Then we got a local paper. Check this out. Headline, local paper endorses Republican Steve Knight because Democrat won't stop the mob. That's why Donald Trump is at the rally saying the Democrats create mobs, Republicans create jobs. The Santa Clarita Valley Signal announced Sunday it's endorsing incumbent Republican Steve Knight over Democrat challenger Katie Hill in California's 25th congressional district because she refused to stop a Democratic political agitator from bullying the paper. In a scathing editorial, "Fed up with bullies, we endorse Steve Knight," the Signal argues that it's been generous to Hill in its coverage, even spiking negative stories, but that she refused to stop a campaign of harassment and slander. So we have newspapers saying enough. The left is the mob at this point because they've done nothing but see red since 2016. One more hour coming your way next.
The news and talk of Northeast Arkansas. This is News Talk 101.3 FM and 12:30 AM KBTM, Jonesboro, an EAB radio station.
For harming others accountable, and that is not only does it cap non-economic damages, again, which are pain and suffering, scarring and permanent disfigurement, loss of a bodily member or function, loss of companionship, and loss of life. Not only does it cap all of those things at $500,000, which are currently unlimited. Right now, if you went to court in Arkansas, you can be made whole as a victim of, abuse or neglect or being ran over by an 18-wheeler, or nursing home abuse, whatever. The courts have the ability to make you whole. If that $500,000 cap for non-economic damages passes, they won't have the ability to make people whole again. But then the other portion of that cap is the cap on punitive damages, which it caps at $500,000 or 3 times the compensatory damages. In other words, the total amount of damages. Well, here's the problem with that. We live in an economy of scale. And you may have seen recently, the news reports where Apple was the first corporation ever to reach $1 trillion valuation.
Yes.
Did you see that?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
And I think Amazon's right on its heels. Amazon will probably be worth $1 trillion pretty soon. And punitive damages are those damages that we recognize in the law that are used to deter future bad conduct. In other words, they're used to punish bad actors, to deter them from ever doing that thing again. And what Issue 1 will do is it will limit punitive damages to $500,000 or 3 times the compensatory. And I don't mean to make $500,000 not sound like a lot of money, because it is. But again, in an economy of scale, where you're talking about you have corporations valued at $1 trillion.
Yeah.
Many of the Fortune 500 companies, multiple billion dollars. Big Pharma, for example, you have CVS Caremark is buying out the insurance company Aetna.
Yep.
And I think my understanding is they're paying cash of like 60-something billion dollars. And you're going to say $500,000 in punitive damages to a company like that is going to deter their future bad conduct?
It's nothing.
I mean, what a joke.
It's a drop in the bucket. Yeah.
I mean, $500,000 again is a lot of money. But when you're $1 trillion corporation, or when you're a multi-billion-dollar corporation, is $500,000 or 3 times the overall compensatory likely to deter future bad conduct?
They won't change their behavior at all.
No.
Yeah, not at all.
So, let's be real. But the last
That's
part.
truth right there. That's State Representative Jimmy Gasway. That's a lot of truth. Go ahead. Go ahead.
The last part that you mentioned, so I wanted to get to that too, which is the rule-making authority. And, I've said that, this could be maybe the most dangerous part. I mean, it's certainly the most insidious. In other words, people aren't going to recognize its true danger, and they knew that. But this may be the part that they want the most, because if you can control the rules, you can control the outcome. Okay? So let me give you some examples, like some of the rules of evidence, for example, in a case. If you can control what evidence is admissible in a case, so maybe they change the rules of hearsay to where, you have somebody, well, I know this happened, somebody told me that. Well, you're not going to be able to say that in court. You'll never be able to get it in and get it admitted. If you can't get it admitted, maybe you can't prove your case. The rules of discovery, for example, and that's one of the big ones. Discovery is that portion in a lawsuit where you can request documents, you can make the other side answer questions, you can take depositions. It's where you build your case. It's where you gather the evidence from the other side that you need in order to make your case. Well, guess what? If they can control those rules, they can keep things secret that maybe not allow you access to things. So, for example, one of the bills that they tried to pass in the past was to make nursing home inspection reports, not eligible.
Yeah, that's hearsay.
To be able to obtain or to use those in court. Or let's say you want to subpoena witnesses to help make your case. One of the things, my understanding, that's been proposed in the past is if a nursing home employee would have to get the permission of the nursing home owner to testify as an expert witness in a case, or something along those lines. And even if that's not exactly what they did in the past, if they can control the rules, see, that may be the things that you'll see in the future. Now they'll say, "Oh, we don't want to do that."
That's ridiculous. I mean, we can't control what future legislators are going to do.
Right.
You know, even if we believe them now.
That's right.
They're going to be. They're different people.
Yeah.
You know.
So maybe not the next session, but what about the session after that?
Yeah.
Let's see where it actually goes. So that to me is one of the.
I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
They seem to be in full-scale retreat from spending cuts and are talking about raising people's taxes again. And I have only one thing to say to the tax increasers. Go ahead, make my day.
If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. Those who would trade our freedom for security have embarked on this downward course. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell is on now.
All right, folks, welcome. It is Monday. We are 14 days from the general election, where folks are going to decide whether or not, nationwide, whether or not they want to keep things going the way that they're going, or whether or not the Democrats are going to take control of the House and destroy the country. That's essentially what our choices are. Oh, by the way, I'm a conservative constitutional person, and so that's how I'm going to identify the news. That's how I'm going to describe it to you. At least you know, versus these phonies who claim objectivity but are actually secretly, intentionally deceiving you. So it's the intersection of conservative ideas and reality, where we are building a liberty machine. Now, probably we had a conclusion. Last hour, we titled the podcast. Joe, what did we title the podcast again? I'm the one that just told you what the title should be. Caravan Coordinated Crisis reveals Dems not confident about winning the House, ? I think because all that's coordinated. And by the way, we're going to talk more about the caravan. Now it's 7,000 people. They got past Guatemala, if you're just joining us. Maria Espinoza from the Remembrance Project will be on at 7:33 to talk about this manufactured crisis, or at least that's my opinion. We'll see what she says. Also, today's the first day of early voting. So we're 14 days from an election. It's the first day of early voting. So I would want to direct all of you over to Conduit News. Check this out. This is a news story by Conduit News about Commerce in Action. Commerce in Action has released a voter guide. So we have listeners all over the state of Arkansas. And so if you would like a voter guide and you're not really sure, but you do trust, Commerce in Action, you trust Conduit, then I would suggest you give it a read here. It's up at conduitnews.com right now. Commerce in Action has released their 2018 General Election Voters Guide on their website. Below is the full statement from the fiscal conservative organization. Commerce in Action is pleased to announce their 2018 General Election Voters Guide. Commerce in Action supports the election of candidates to office who support limited government, individual liberty, and economic freedom, and have shown that through their voting records as incumbents or through pledges during their campaigns. The Voters Guide includes recommendations for the state Supreme Court, ballot issues, state constitutional offices, governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, secretary of state, treasurer, land commissioner, auditor, state senate, and state representative. So, folks, it's pretty thorough. If you have a question and you want to see, what the recommendation is, or you're kind of undecided, this may be a tool that would be good for you to at least give you a little bit more information about what other people think, right? Early voting begins today. So before you vote, it might be beneficial, it would be beneficial for you to go to conduitnews.com, click on this story so that you can see the Commerce in Action Voters Guide. There's a link right there. You see the link right there to download it as a PDF. So if you go to conduitnews.com on your phone, you can see, listen, state Supreme Court race. the governor's race, lieutenant governor, attorney general. Now, some of these were not high. I think there was no position taken on some of these. But anyway, just give it a look. Give it a look. And pretty interesting stuff. Give it a download. I think it's a valuable tool. I think it'll be good. Oh, look at right there. You see Ricky Lattimore got the nod from House District 11. That's Ricky Lattimore is actually going to be in the program, or going to be on the program this week. I believe he's going to be on Thursday of this week. But let me check. I'm going to double check. Let me scroll over. I got my schedule pulled up here. I thought I had it up, but anyway. Actually, yeah, Thursday. I think it's we had to reschedule. It was on a Wednesday, and now it's moved to Thursday. But anyway. All right, so check that out. Also, speaking of a specific race, over in Fayetteville, have you seen this? Look at this up at conduitnews.com. He wants to take your guns. So this has to do with a video, includes debate footage of Greg Leding stating his support. Now, State Representative Greg Leding is trying to become a senator up there in the Fayetteville area, and the Republican opponent is Don Clements. The video includes debate footage of Leding stating his support and sponsorship of gun confiscation legislation. Leding states, "Your life is more important to me than your right to have a gun in your hands." What? Leding has recently sponsored and supported gun confiscation laws referred to as red flag laws. These laws may allow the government to confiscate a person's gun if a complaint is filed against them. Both Leding and Clements are vying for the open state Senate seat currently held by Uvalde Lindsay, a Democrat from Fayetteville. Greg Leding is the current state representative for the Fayetteville area. Don Clements is, an ophthalmics, or I guess, what is this? Is this some sort of, is it an orthopedic thing? She's a medical sales specialist. Let's say that. Why can't I see that word? Anyway, so let's click on the ad. Check this out, Joe. Go ahead. This is the ad. This is running, I guess, in local markets up in Northwest Arkansas, and it's pretty interesting. Listen to this.
Greg Leding wants to be your next state senator, but he's also the sponsor of an aggressive gun confiscation bill.
The Second Amendment is important, but your life is more important to me than your right to have a gun in your hand.
It doesn't have to be that way. You have a solid conservative alternative.
I'm Don Clements, and I'm asking for your vote for the Arkansas State Senate, District 4, on November the 6th.
Now, listen, here, this is interesting. That's do what? Yeah. Joe said, at least Greg Leding said it's your right. He didn't say privilege. So that's Don Clements, and she is, I think, that might be an effective ad up there. Listen, I know it's blue up in Fayetteville in that area, and that's a lot of where the population is going to come. But could you imagine if the Republicans were to flip this seat? That'd be a big, big win. It would actually, and I know it may be a long shot, but it would be a huge win. And right now, there's going to be a lot of Republican voters out there. Folks, there are Democrats who are going to vote Republican down the ticket. Did you know that? I've got news flash to the Democrat Party. Those of you who are Democrats, those of you who are leftists, that can hear my voice, I want you to understand something. This general election, there will be Democrats who are going to vote straight down the ticket for Republicans. You watch. You wait and see. I've talked to some of them. I've heard stories from people I trust who have talked to lifelong Democrats who have had enough. And that's why there is this movement on Twitter called the Walkaway Movement, because people are realizing that this is no good. That there's something not right. This isn't the typical Republican versus Democrat battles that we used to have. This is the stakes are a lot higher. The people who are devoted to the leftist doctrine, it's reached a level of religious devotion more than free thinking and trying to analyze each event based on, what the facts are and move and make the right decision. No. If that decision that you're proposing goes against their preconceived notions, then you're a heretic and you need to be burned at the stake. Now, I know no one's advocating that yet, but you get the point, right? Anyway, it's a good, it's an interesting article or interesting ad that he said. Can we listen to the ad from the beginning, like again, because we missed the very beginning part because the volume wasn't turned up, Joe.
Greg Leding wants to be your next state senator, but he's also the sponsor of an aggressive gun confiscation
We
bill.
have low volume again. Okay, so here we go. Thank you.
Greg Leding wants to be your next state senator, but he's also the sponsor of an aggressive gun confiscation bill.
The Second Amendment is important, but your life is more important to me than your right to have a gun in your hand.
It doesn't have to be that way. You have a solid conservative alternative.
I'm Dawn Clements, and I'm asking for your vote for the Arkansas State Senate, District 4, on November the 6th.
Wow, man. I wonder, listen, I'm telling you, there are plenty of Democrats out there that believe in the Second Amendment. Now, I've always had a problem, in a way, with only using the Second Amendment to cast your vote, because, if you don't have, let's say you have a Democrat that's like, yeah, I believe in the Second Amendment, sort of. The left right now, though, is for all-out gun confiscation. Like, that's their goal. That's what they want. And I think there are people that may end up, switching to the Republican Party just solely on that issue because they understand the dangers of, gun confiscation and that sort of thing. Folks, we're 14 days from the general election. Early voting starts today. Again, go to Conduit News and check out that Commerce in Action Voters Guide. We'll go over we'll go over more of it, as things pan out. I will tell you this. I just got a text from Janet. Janet says there are races I will not cast a vote in. There may be a lot of people that feel that way. There may be a lot of people that, go vote for the candidate that and then there's some that maybe say, I don't want to vote in this or that because I know what I'm getting and I really, really have a problem with it. And Janet, I think what you're talking about, if I, can be so bold, I think you're talking about Arkansas specifically. You're talking about Arkansas. You're saying there's some races here in Arkansas that are tough to just go vote Republican straight down the ticket. Well, let me say this. I think nationwide that will be the trend. So when you look at Democrats nationwide, I think there's going to be Democrats. Specifically, down in Texas, I've had a friend tell me about a story. Tell me a story where you're at work and you have Republicans in the same room, coworkers. You have independents in the same room. You have Democrats in the same room. And this was during the height of the Kavanaugh hearings. And everybody in the room, everyone in the room said they were voting Republican straight down the ticket. Every one of them. It could be an anomaly. But it's funny how we want to connect stories that may be happening independent of one another, may have nothing to do with one another, may just be a coincidence, but maybe not. Maybe there's something else there. Because when you have a story like that and other stories that I've heard, and then you see Kanye West, whoever in the world thought this would happen? You see Kanye West in the Oval Office praising President Trump, but using the opportunity to say, you think racism can control me? Racism can control me. Hey, how about we work to have jobs, better paying jobs for people in the African American community? How about we do this with, the conversation was one of great substance. And yeah, it was, at times it was all over the place, but it was entertaining and it was fascinating. And listen, if 5%, according to reports, if 5% of the African American vote decide to vote for Republicans. Democrats aren't winning the House, I'll tell you that much. I don't know if they're going to win an election ever again at that point. When I was growing up, I asked my grandparents, who were Democrats most of their lives. I didn't know anything about politics. Why are you guys Democrats? Well, Democrats tend to be for the working person. Huh. So I don't understand. What does that mean? I didn't understand what that meant. Well, now you might come to think of it as, Democrats are for the unions and everything else, and the unions, and we know, of course, how terrible unionization can be and is in many regards, how it actually makes factories less efficient now. But, you can go into the history of how they were formed or whatever, but I think that's where that kind of came from. But I don't think a lot of people were even saying that back in the day because they were for unions or they wanted unions. I just think that was the general idea, was that Democrats were for blue collar working people who had great work ethic, who wanted to make a living, who wanted to support their families and wanted to live their lives. In essence, for the middle class, right? And that's why, and listen, the question is this: is that who the Democrat Party is now? Is that who they are at all for the working person? Now, issues are very complicated. I get that. It's very, very, a lot of gray areas, gray issues out there, One of them that's divided the conservative right is Donald Trump's, free trade versus tariffs. People are having that battle. But my goodness, generally speaking, if you look at the Democrat Party and you look at the left today, John F. Kennedy couldn't win the nomination to be president of the United States because he believed in tax cuts, the crumbs that the Democrats like Clark Tucker, who's running against French Hill. Clark Tucker, man, that guy's going to vote to raise your taxes. I'm telling you, he's going to vote for Nancy Pelosi. And why is he going to vote for Nancy Pelosi? Well, because Nancy Pelosi's the one somehow, somebody somewhere is trusting her with all this money that she's raised, and that's what's going to determine who gets to be Speaker of the House, is how much money you raise for the Democrat Party, how much money you raise for the affiliated PACs. Who is the left today in this country? You think John F. Kennedy would be okay? Seriously, you think Democrat John F. Kennedy would say, oh, yeah, we need more people, we need more caravans, we need more people from Guatemala and these we need open borders and 7,000, an invasion of 7,000 people that set out and openly declare, we're going to America and they're going to let us in? You think John F. Kennedy would say, yeah, sure, come on in? Well, that's what the left wants to do. It's absolutely nuts. The two parties are so far apart at this point. And you have a lot of people who, jump ship and are saying, "Hey, listen, these are my big issues, and so I'm going over here." I've heard before that at this point the Republican Party is essentially, got 5 types of, Republicans in it. And you can kind of go down the list. And that's why people like me get so frustrated with them. Because I'm for limited government and measurably reducing the size and scope of government. 14 days before an election, I just want to leave you with this, but we're going to go to break. 14 days before the general election, where we decide if the House is going to be, remain in control of the Republicans. And I read a headline from George Jarrett at Talk Business and Politics. Headline: Governor Hutchinson tells Trump to end trade war with China. Unbelievable. Unbelievable that Asa Hutchinson is essentially criticizing Trump. 14 days. Arkansas governor. If this may get picked up Asa could be on MSNBC tomorrow. Republican governor criticizes Trump 14 days ahead of general election. Don't think the press wouldn't love to mislead people and further deceive them with that. We got to take a break. Back in a moment.
Most dangerous things about it that's hidden out there. Or, another point there, if you can control the rules, you just make it really hard to file a lawsuit. Maybe you have to go to arbitration before you can file your case. Maybe you have to, make the rules for subpoenaing witnesses and getting the people to court that you need there so hard, and that you have to go through so many steps and so many days notice and this and that and the other thing, that it makes it so hard to ever even bring a case.
We're talking with State Representative Jimmy Gazaway about the dangers of Issue 1. We will all be voting on this in a couple of weeks. Early voting starts, I think, is it next week? Or I think so. November 6th is the election day. And so, Issue 1's bad. It doesn't need to happen. This is, special interest dream. I want to give you credit. Not only State Representative Jimmy Gazaway are you going across the state and speaking against this, but you actually tried at the very beginning to stop this using your power as a legislator.
Good morning. Good morning. Congratulations, you have made it to the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, where we strive to offer politicians the very best in ambiguously specific language, the purpose of which is to allow our politician bosses to grow government and keep their constituents in the dark. This yields two beneficial outcomes. First, the government-growing politicians stay in office, and second, we at the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language get to remain in the shadows and get to keep our jobs. Now, it's time for technocrat training drills. Johnny?
Yes?
A politician wants to use the healthcare system to punish those who have and redistribute their wealth. What is the appropriate language to use in this situation to make an unpopular idea acceptable to the public?
I would emphasize that these ideas would make their healthcare more affordable and make sure the public understands if they already have adequate healthcare, nothing will change for them.
Very good, Johnny. Much progress since last time. Next up, let's have Susie. Susie, your politician has been caught in, dare I say it, a lie.
What kind of a lie?
It doesn't really matter, but in the spirit of the Bureau of Carefully Crafted Language, I will give you a good hypothetical scenario. Dozens of politicians have been thrown out of office for supporting a socialist health care program. So the remaining politicians get together and they pass a bill to, quote, end the program, end quote. But they really want to keep it. What should they do, Susie?
May I ask a question for more information?
Certainly.
Has the word lie been used by the political opposition?
Yes.
I know. They should change the name of the program. Maybe use the word works to make the sheeple think it's for working folk. Then they should go on the attack and get the public distracted. I would advise the politician to publicly question why our political dialogue has become so uncivilized and tell them to claim using the word lie, no matter how accurate, is a personal...
Exposing the truth and everything the Marble Palace establishment keep trying to cover up. It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, welcome back. Jobs, not mobs. That's now the mantra that's been coined by President Donald Trump. Jobs, not mobs. It's the Democrats who want mobs. They form mobs. The Republicans are creating jobs. And that is, I think that's genius. This is, when I was saying earlier, Democrats used to be known as the party of the, quote, blue-collar person. Whether that was true or not, that was what was known. Folks, Democrats now, this is so good. Somebody, Randy on Facebook, writes, now the Democrat Party are the non-working people. That's exactly right. It's people who just, it's people who are socialists, who think they should just be given everything so they can go pursue their dreams and have somebody else pay for it. And that's the overwhelming philosophy, though, of the Dems. That's their philosophy. Right? It's what drives all of their opinions. It's what informs all of their opinions is this idea of I shouldn't have to go to work. I don't want to do that. I don't want to have to work and do something maybe that's hard or inconvenient or, that's where this is all headed. A guaranteed income. They want it. Guaranteed vacation. They want that, right? And obviously guaranteed health care, right? We're all born into this world enslaved to one another. So you shouldn't have bacon. You should be forced to eat broccoli. That's, if you follow to the logical end, that's where all this is headed. We got to take a break. Back in a moment.
Most dangerous things about it that's hidden out there. Or, another point there, if you can control the rules, you just make it really hard to file a lawsuit. Maybe you have to go to arbitration before you can file your case. Maybe you have to, make the rules for subpoenaing witnesses and getting the people to court that you need there so hard, and that you have to go through so many steps and so many days' notice and this and that and the other thing, that it makes it so hard to ever even bring a case.
We're talking with State Representative Jimmy Gazaway about the dangers of Issue 1. We will all be voting on this in a couple of weeks. Early voting starts, I think, is it next week? Or I think so. November 6th is the election day. And so, Issue 1's bad. It doesn't need to happen. This is, special interest dream. I want to give you credit. Not only State Representative Jimmy Gazaway are you going across the state and speaking against this, but you actually tried at the very beginning to stop this using your power as a legislator. You, correct me if I'm wrong, you offered an amendment, or you offered another bill entirely that would have done some tort reform, but not this. Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I ended up offering an amendment, and I think this is something else important for, the people that aren't at the Marble Palace all the time, who don't know exactly what's going on. It's important for them to understand the process and kind of how all this came to be. There were multiple constitutional amendments introduced this last legislative session. Certainly upwards of 10, may have been even around 20. I'm not exactly sure of the number, but it was everything from the ones you're going to see on your ballot. This Issue 1, voter ID. There were some about education. There are multiple topics and issues about how we amend our Constitution by initiated act and referendum. A proposed constitutional amendment to change the way we do that. There were multiple constitutional amendments offered. Well, where do those constitutional amendments go? The process is that those go to the State Agencies Committee. Well, guess who the chairman of the State Agencies Committee was?
In the House of Representatives?
Yes.
That'd be Bob Ballinger.
Correct,
yeah.
Who was the sponsor of the bill. Nothing against Bob. I like Bob. I consider Bob a friend. I think he really is genuine in what he believes. We just have policy disagreements. I just think he's wrong. He thinks I'm wrong. That's fine. We can disagree. But Bob was the chairman of state agencies. All the constitutional amendments go to state agencies. Bob was the lead sponsor on Issue 1, or it was SJR 8 at the time, in the House. It goes to his committee. Well, when I got elected to the legislature, excuse me, the Speaker appoints all.
The intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
Let's see here. Welcome back to the program. Thanks so much for being with us today. We have just a ton of stuff. This is the first day of early voting in the state of Arkansas. And nationally, though, folks, there what appears to be a huge, at least a PR crisis that's happening. Here, listen to this. A headline: growing caravan of migrants pushes deeper into Mexico. It's now up to, 7,000 people, according to the front page of the Drudge Report. They got through Guatemala into Mexico, and now they're heading for the United States border. Joining us now to talk about this, we have a national immigration expert, also the director of the Remembrance Project. Maria Espinoza is back with us. Maria, good morning to you.
Good morning, Paul. Thanks so much for having me on again.
Yes, it's always great to have you on. What's your take on this? I mean, we're 14 days from an election. Does that have anything to do with the timing of the 7,000 person strong caravan?
Oh, absolutely it does. In fact, remember the Honduran and El Salvadorian and Guatemalan leaders were here in Washington, D.C. last week, and their response to President Trump's cutting some of their foreign aid last year was simply that they will do what they can, but they want to be able to understand if they're going to get more funding in the future. So I think this is all political. This is certainly trying to pressure America, sort of extortion, in my opinion. And the day after Vice President Pence met with these other country leaders, that's when the caravan took off from Honduras. And now we're looking here. I believe that Guatemala and Mexico allowed this caravan to push through. I mean, we know that Mexico has stronger laws and enforces its southern border, much stronger than America enforces its southern border. And they will shoot you if you cross illegally into Mexico. And here they're allowed to come through and make their way right up to the United States. And guess what? We take care of them. Not only do we give their countries U.S. foreign aid for specifically these types of problems and violence, economic purposes, but we now are being forced to take care of their citizens, those citizens that they no longer want in their country. So, yes, this is absolutely, number one, orchestrated and intentional, and, yes, the midterms is key here.
Yeah, we have people that want to hurt the Trump administration domestically by hurting him politically. We've seen that with China, what they're trying to do to influence the midterms in states that Donald Trump won with, targeting on the farmers and everything else. And that affects us here in Arkansas. And now we have these countries south of the border. It seems they're doing the same thing. So let me ask you this. We've got Mexico. You say their immigration laws are pretty strict. They will shoot you if they cross the border. But we also know, just by general, consensus, Mexican officials are pretty easy to bribe. So my question is, do you think George Soros or some of these ultra-left, are they bribing the Mexican officials to let the migrants through?
Oh, that's hands down, I believe so, absolutely. And, again, Mexico welcomes them, in my opinion. They'll, a few years back, remember they gave them a 3-day visa to cross through their country only on the terms that they would not remain in Mexico. So they're helping them get across. And now I'm looking at an article where the federal government is sending police officers to the southern border, 2 727 Boeing planes filled supposedly with federal police officers. My question is, when they get there, are they going to fill these planes with the members of this caravan and bring them up to, closer to our border? I don't trust Mexico. Obviously, they push out their citizens, and a few years ago I was doing some research, and learned that 2/3 of the illegal aliens at that time who were living in the United States were from Mexico, and they came from 6 to 7 states in Mexico. So that tells me that these individuals were intentionally encouraged to cross illegally. And we also have seen the pamphlets that was discovered back in the 90s. They were very basic, almost like comic strip pamphlets telling their citizens on how to get to the border, hire a coyote, what to wear, what to do, what to say with an agent finds you, and where to go to get help here in the United States. So.
And they also give them scripts, say this particular legal phrase, and now you'll be admitted into the country, and you'll have a court date.
The credible fear.
Yeah. We're talking with Maria Espinoza. Check out her stuff. It's the remembranceproject.org. It's an organization founded to remember those who have been murdered by illegal aliens. Like preventable deaths is the key there. If we would secure our border, have a immigration policy that actually works. Speaking of securing the border, Maria, I would like to know what you think about President Donald Trump's statement. He says, listen, these people are not getting in. He's come out and been pretty forceful at this point. He knows they're coming. And he's threatening to put the military, not reserves, but the military on the southern border. What are your thoughts on that?
We asked him to do just that last month. So he has been very patient. He has warned them, but if we don't enforce our laws, Paul, we have no country. We have no constitution. And number one priority is for our leader is to protect our country and its citizens. And that's what he's doing. And whether you are a Democrat, Republican, Independent, you have to side with safety here in the United States. And the Remembrance Project is the only organization in the country, and it's probably the world, that we're seeing, because people from other countries are reaching out to us wanting the Remembrance Project and the Stolen Lives Quilt to go into their countries as well, because they're having the same types of problems, especially in the UK, with illegal aliens there. But yes, I encourage President Donald Trump to place the troops on the border, double the ICE agents and the immigration, the Border Patrol. But we also are asking all of your listeners there, Paul, to please recognize the National Remembrance Day for Americans killed by illegal aliens. This day we've recognized this day for 7 years now, and it is the first Sunday of each November. So come November 4th, we are going to have another event here in Washington, D.C., in Lafayette Park, near the White House, to remember and honor our fellow fallen Americans, because they are permanently separated from their loved ones, and they should still be here if only our laws were enforced and politicians placed American lives first.
That's exactly right, putting American lives first. So you said this. You said this earlier, that you have these leaders from these countries. They met with Vice President Pence, and then about maybe not getting as much U.S. money. And then they send this, this force. And so I got this text right after you said that, and somebody has a question: Are we paying Honduras not to invade the United States, or if we stop paying them our taxpayer dollars, they send an invasion force? I mean, think about that. What other response would any leader have but to then send troops to the border?
Exactly. And again, President Trump has tweeted that no more money will be given to, Honduras, Guatemala, El Salvador if they do not stop and come pick up their people and return them to their countries. That's exactly what's going on. And you were talking earlier in your show on the left. This is not a matter, an issue about politics, Paul. We're so far beyond that. If we don't stop and think about what we're doing here and place American first and do what's best, just like President Donald Trump is doing. He has the best interests of America in mind. And, understand that the entire Democrat Party will completely resist him no matter what he says. Many of the Republicans will so as well. But, I can't tell people how to vote or who to vote for, but you certainly can vote for those individuals who will emulate and work with President Donald Trump, and that is placing our security, our national security, and the safety and the economic success of this country first and foremost. If America goes down, Paul, we have nowhere to go. We are the beacon of freedom. So this is what's at stake here. This is much more than politics. This is about the survival of America.
Yeah, it's echoing President Ronald Reagan. So they're in Mexico now, this caravan. We're 14 days until November 6th. Early voting starts today, in Arkansas, and I think across the country as well. When are they going to get there? And I guess I'm like, how many days out of the election are they going to be there? They're going to be at the border. If President Trump then sends the military and activates them, CNN, everybody, we're going to have cameras there, and there's going to be this very tense atmosphere, I would imagine.
Right.
And what is that? I mean, can you imagine the powder keg that could potentially be?
Well, I think the American people are fed up. Let's look at on the flip side. If you don't have compassion for American children, we have a whole banners full of our Stolen Lives Quilt banners with American children killed. We have so many families that I can sit here and list, and we can sit here and talk about for hours the stories. And just last night I spoke to another family. This is an everyday thing for us where we're trying to keep up with the carnage, Paul, and we simply cannot. We have wonderful youth who are being killed by illegal aliens. We're bringing in more supposedly UICs, unaccompanied minors. here, unaccompanied children. I guess they changed that word to make it a little more heart-tugging, but who are here sitting next to our children in schools. These other kids came from chaos, and this is what they're bringing in the culture, and they're recruiting gang members, and that's why the uptick in the MS-13 gang membership and the violence. They're thumbing their noses to our laws and to its citizens. But you're right. What the media wants is that climax there at the border and the cameras. You bet they're going to be at the border with those cameras, every single news station, where they never came into the press conference room when President Trump was meeting with our families. They panned away.
Yes.
So this is the fake news has been exposed. These countries exposed for taking advantage of the generous American taxpayer. We have 500,000 American orphan children who need good homes and a better life. We have 13 million children who live in poverty and probably go to bed hungry. Let's clean our house and making sure that we're taking care of our children first before we start looking at the fake news and their cameras where they put women and children at the front. Pregnant women coming on this whole trek is completely ridiculous.
Yes. Yeah.
No woman who cared for their child would put themselves in that situation. Plus, you have parents sending their young daughters on birth control to cross the border with a coyote, knowing that they're going to be raped. What kind of people, what kind of character are these people coming from? Who are they? We don't need any more crime, Paul. We need to stop importing crime. We've got plenty of problems in Chicago and Detroit. Why are we welcoming this chaotic group of people?
I completely agree. And, that's the whole point of having a sovereign nation, is being able to decide who gets to come and who doesn't get to come. And so that's a really good points that you're making. The left has been – oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Our baseline, Paul, is that we do not have to allow anyone into our country, and that's what every American citizen has to think about. Our baseline is simply that. We don't have to allow anyone into our country. It's better, in my opinion, to be able to teach other countries to fish and how to take care and be able to, for their citizens, to force the kind of government that they're fleeing to, not to bring their problems here.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we're very generous and we can help them there, and that's what we're doing. That's what President Trump is using the U.S. foreign aid to, as a way to try to make those countries be good leaders and, be good parents.
The left has been using this phrase for the last 18 months, and the phrase is this: influence the outcome of an election. I look at these and this is an actual attempt to do that. This 7,000 caravan, that's what it actually looks like. This is an attempt to influence the outcome of an election. But don't expect any analysis like that from the mainstream media. They're going to sit on their moral high horse, and they're going to claim that Donald Trump is heartless and is a totalitarian for securing the border, because he's at the point now, unless these people are stopped, he's not going to back down. I mean, he's shown that multiple times. I saw somebody, even suggest that, hey, maybe you shut down, not only use the military to secure the border, but you also just shut down the legal crossing. Just absolutely shut it down, say nobody in, nobody out for a period of time, which we did do in 1985 after one of our federal agents was killed at the border.
Right, exactly. We have to do this. I'm from Texas originally. We're here in Washington, D.C. now. It's very important that we are here looking over the shoulder of these politicians, and I can tell you that the people will save this country, because we're going to band together and do what's right. Democrats, Republicans, Independents, and that's why the walk away movement has picked up and taken hold here across the country, because they're seeing that this is not about politics or parties. This is about the survival of America. And if you take a look at what's going on in the streets, Paul, with the Antifa and how they can attack, there's a video out there went viral where a young man verbally attacked the widow of a fallen police officer during the 9/11 terrorist attacks. This is unacceptable behavior, And if you're wearing a MAGA hat supporting President Trump, then you can be, assaulted. This is just outrageous, this type of behavior. And know that these people do get paid. And we've known this for several years. The Remembrance Project started in 2009. And, our eyes were just, eyes wide open when you pull that curtain back and you're seeing more and more on what's really taking place. How can you stop? Because no one else is doing this, and no one else sees some of the things that we do. Hearing some of the families, a mother who was denied to give her victim impact statement when her only son was murdered. And these are activist judges that President Trump actually created the Office of Voice last year, Victims of Immigration Crime Engagement, as a promise to the Remembrance Project. And one of the key elements was to help navigate through the court system, which is why we wanted to, which is the reason we wanted that was to expose these activist judges. And you can see that Obama pushed through this so-called executive order of DACA. And now, why can't President Trump remove that? He can't. He should be able to rescind it, but guess what? It's stuck there, stalled in the Ninth Circuit Court.
Yeah. Wow.
Exactly. So Americans, please stand up, call President Trump. Number one, ask him for the National Day of Remembrance. We want a proclamation from the President. I'll give the number. It's 202-456-1111. And please let him know to place those troops at the border and protect American lives.
Maria Espinoza, the website, theremembranceproject.org. Maria, it's always great to have you on. Thank you for your thoughts, and hopefully, this caravan will be stopped. That's my hope, and I hope you have a great day, Maria.
Thank you so much, Paul, and God bless you. Keep praying.
Yes. Folks, going to take a break. It's always great to have her on, and we'll be back here in just a moment after these messages.
If you believe the Second Amendment protects your right to defend your home with a firearm, where do you turn if the government confiscates your gun? To the courthouse. The Founding Fathers created your Seventh Amendment right to a civil jury to protect your freedoms. The courthouse is where you fight the overreaching hand of government. And the Brad Hendricks Law Firm is where the fight starts. Call the Brad Hendricks Law Firm at 501-221-0444. The Brad Hendricks Law Firm in Little Rock, standing ready using the Seventh Amendment to protect your Second Amendment rights.
Russellville-based firearms manufacturer Omega are making clones of the most notable German firearms in the world. These delayed rotor-lock firearms have been and are currently used by law enforcement and military worldwide. At Omega, they manufacture their guns right here in Arkansas and produce the best reproduction in the marketplace that comes with a complete 5-year warranty. At Omega, they take firearm manufacturing seriously and offer discounts to active and retired law enforcement. Whether you're using Omega firearms to defend the public, defend your family, or for target practice, Omega has your back. For pricing, go to omega-guns.com. That's omega-guns.com. If you're like me, you believe that small business is the heart of Arkansas's economic engine, and it should be viewed that way by the politicians in Little Rock. Conduit for Commerce also believes, like you and I believe, policies that achieve less regulation and lower taxation help small business in Arkansas thrive. Other policies like small, constitutionally consistent government and reducing citizen dependency on government keeps it from growing and expanding its influence on our daily lives. Conduit for Commerce works every day to educate the general public and legislators on these important priorities in the name of Arkansas small business. By the way, contributions to Conduit for Commerce are tax deductible. Log on now to conduitforcommerce.org and click on Contact Us on the right side of the page. That's conduitforcommerce.org. Go there now and learn the facts on protecting small business in Arkansas.
Committee chairman and chairman of subcommittees. And so I'm a new representative. I'm at the Capitol. Speaker's making his appointments. And I see that I have been appointed as the vice chairman of the Civil Law and Courts subcommittee of the Judiciary Committee. And I think, like, oh, this is awesome, and I'm like, I'm the vice chairman. I'm a freshman and I'm vice chairman of the Civil Courts and Civil Law and Court Subcommittee. And Clark Tucker was the chairman of that, which should have told me something. You make a Democrat the chairman of, what does that mean? So I go to Clark and I said, hey, so when are we going to meet, like the Civil Law and Court Subcommittee? And Clark just kind of laughed at me. He said, you don't understand how this works. He's like, subcommittees never meet. I was like, oh, okay. Unless you're the state agencies committee. Because what they did was they took all those constitutional amendments in state agencies and referred them to a
Need your daily news fix? Don't forget to tune in to Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
All right, folks, welcome back. 14 days outside of an election. We have huge news that happened on Thursday afternoon. We talked about it on Friday before the weekend. By the way, I hope you had a great weekend, and I thank you for starting the beginning of your week with us here at the intersection of conservative ideas and reality. Issue 1 was thrown off the ballot. The votes for Issue 1 will not be tallied, so if you cast your vote for Issue 1, it not going to be tallied. The Supreme Court said basically, hey, you've log rolled, which means you got too many issues into one issue. Of course, the establishment here in the state didn't like that. You had Senator Trent Gardner decided to threaten the Supreme Court's funding, which would be interesting. That would just slow the court system down, wouldn't it? I mean, that would easily hurt. Anyway, they say that they've threatened the court system's funding now because they don't like the ruling that they gave. At least that was what a tweet was by Senator Trent Gardner. You've had reaction very positively from a lot of other people that are just relieved that the nursing homes didn't succeed in their quest to essentially be able to continue, to be able to, accidents happen. I'm not saying there's intentional, malintent, but to basically just put a price on human life, put it in an Excel spreadsheet. We killed this person. Well, we'll only have to ever pay $500,000. So it's just part of doing business. People are relieved about that. Also, what was thrown off the ballot, issue number 3, the term limits initiative. We'll focus a little bit on that. That's thrown off the ballot. It will not be counted. So the efforts of the people of Arkansas to strengthen term limits and say, listen, you've only got 10 years to be down there. That's been thrown off the ballot as well. No surprise there. It's no surprise to me. I feel like the status quo. Look, you had one. In my opinion, you don't get everything you want. I think it's great issue 1 was thrown off the ballot. I don't think it's great that issue 3 was thrown off the ballot. So, hey, you win some, you lose some. But I'll talk more about that. We'll get into the specifics of that opinion later in the week in the broadcasts. Issue 4 is the casino. What's issue? Anyway, the minimum wage, which is I think issue 5, that has been sustained. I guess that will be on the ballot. So minimum wage will stay on the ballot, from what I can tell, and that's a terrible news for business owners. Terrible news for business owners. But anyway. Also, we're 14 days. I know I've said this about 1,000 times this broadcast. 14 days from the general election, and I read a headline. I wake up this morning to a headline over at Talk Business and Politics. George Jared, headline, Governor Hutchinson tells Trump to end the trade war with China. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We're 14 days from maybe one of the most important midterm elections in your lifetime, where we're going to determine the direction of the country, where it goes. And 14 days away, and I wake up to headlines of Governor Hutchinson criticizing Donald Trump. And I'm telling you, I don't think he'll go, but I promise you, he'll be offered an MSNBC interview because they love Republican governor criticizes Trump on China and his trade policies. That's what they would love at this point. Again, you know why? Because we're 14 days. I don't know what the motivations are. According to the story, it says that Asa communicated to Vice President Mike Pence that Donald Trump needs to end the trade war with China because it's hurting Arkansas farmers. I think the reality is we've got all of these economic development projects with the communist Chinese that are on hold. And I think that's the real outrage here. But we'll see. I take issue with that. Do you take issue with that? Do you like the direction the country is going from a Washington, D.C. national standpoint? So far, President Trump's hard stance on trade has been a good thing with Canada, Mexico, and the European Union. China's just holding out. We'll see what happens. Be safe, Arkansas.